when I moved from 65 to 80, I had a really hard time because I'm like, am I going to lose clients? Are they going to be upset? Are they going to understand? And it's having the confidence of realizing that, you are worth $80 an hour, or maybe it's moving from 30 to 60, whatever it might be, right? It's understanding that what you're doing for that client is helping them grow. And when they see that, like almost 90% of my clients said, you're totally worth it. Yep, no problem. Start charging us $80 an hour as of today. And I had no issue. I lost a few, but those are the few that didn't need or didn't see the value in the bookkeeping, because it's not just bookkeeping, it's actually paying attention to those numbers and helping them grow.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today I am joined by a woman who is the owner of King Accounting and a current Pure Bookkeeping licensee. In 2010, she decided to put her dream of becoming a chartered accountant on hold to do the really important work by helping companies with their bookkeeping needs, and she's done that ever since. Welcome to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast, Melissa Lenos.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I just want to say it's awesome to have you, because I know you are an advocate for business owners across Canada, not just in your local community or close geographic area, but you actually help owners all over the country, which I think is awesome.
Yes, so I'm in the Edmonton area, and I go all through Alberta, as well into Ontario, BC, Saskatchewan, and now the Northwest Territories.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you started getting clients from North America all over North America based on the work that you're doing. So it's awesome. And I'd like to talk about that today. And let's start off with telling us a little bit about your business journey up to this point, where you are today.
For sure. So I started with going to college and doing administration and starting at an SEA firm. And they seen something a little bit different in me. So they actually put me through a number of the CA prerequisite courses here in Edmonton at NAIT. And with that information, I was able to go in, do taxes, do audits. So I have actually all my tax and audit hours to get my CA. I guess it's called a CPA now. From that point, I worked really closely with one of the partners, and he was retiring, and so I decided to go a different direction and go into the bookkeeping world. So what he and I did was he gave me the bookkeeping clients that wanted a little bit cheaper of a bill and a little bit more information month to month or in a quarterly basis. And so I started doing the bookkeeping for some of his clients, giving him a clean year end that he could then send out statements and tax returns with very little work internally. So he ended up making a better profit with a lower bill. The client ended up having about the same bill between the two of us, but they were getting quarterly or monthly prepared income statements and balance sheets so that they could grow their business as well. So that's kind of where I built it up from, and from me doing it by myself to now I have 4 employees, 2 part-time and 2 full-time.
Wow, fantastic. And so I'm really curious, what were some of the benefits that you took from your experiences that you brought into your bookkeeping business?
Oh, from the CA firm. So definitely know what the accountants are looking for. So we don't give them a binder of stuff that they need to look through. They get a PDF of everything that they need. So I know that they need the last month's bank statement or Visa statement or whatever it might be. So all of that is PDF'd for them. So every single item on the balance sheet has backup so that they're not looking to see why it doesn't match. We've already done that for them. So it's saving the client a ton of money because our rate, of course, is significantly less than a CA firm. And then the CAs can do what they should be doing, which is the tax planning and the forward tax planning.
Right. And now you say you charge less, but I know that you have a very solid rate. And in fact, your rate's probably double what the rate most bookkeepers are charging. Talk a little bit about that. Now, I don't necessarily want you to share your intimate details of your business, but share your philosophy around that.
So what I did when I first started my bookkeeping business is I took what my rate was when I worked in the CA firm and divided it in half. So that was the rate that was being charged out for me. So I started my bookkeeping business charging $65 an hour for bookkeeping. And once I started hiring some employees, of course, the $65 an hour is a little harder to make the profit margins that I was hoping to make. So I actually moved all but my controller type clients to $80 an hour.
Wow.
So that's where they're all at now.
Wow, that's fantastic, and thank you for sharing that. I didn't. I think it's very generous of you to share some of the intimate details of your business, but I think it's really valuable. And for the listeners right now, this should be a signal that there is room to move up, and there's a very important reason to get your rates up. Whether you do value pricing or you do just hourly pricing, it doesn't matter. It's the fact is that your service that you provide is extremely valuable. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that, Melissa?
Yeah, so I think a lot of us as bookkeepers, and when I moved from 65 to 80, I had a really hard time because I'm like, am I going to lose clients? Are they going to be upset? Are they going to understand? And it's having the confidence of realizing that, you are worth $80 an hour, or maybe it's moving from 30 to 60, whatever it might be, right? It's understanding that what you're doing for that client is helping them grow. And when they see that, like, almost 90% of my clients said, you're totally worth it. Yep, no problem. Start charging us $80 an hour as of today. And I had no issue. I lost a few, but those are the few that didn't need or didn't see the value in the bookkeeping, because it's not just bookkeeping, it's actually paying attention to those numbers and helping them grow.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, you have clients all over the country. How did that happen?
It's actually completely through referrals from accountants, 100%. I don't advertise. I don't try and get business in different provinces or different cities. It's all through accountants, and lots of accountants are all over the place. So it's easy to get the work in different areas as long as you're willing to travel. Lots of it I do remotely, like Ontario. I only go once a year just to do year ends. But other than that, I can do everything remotely. And we have such a great ability with IT nowadays to be able to do things all over. And so I've been able to grow that business and grow myself as well by being in different parts of the world, right? Being in just Edmonton, it's a lot of oil field. Whereas now with Ontario, I get some mining, and Northwest Territories, it's rentals and that kind of thing. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, with the accountants, you talked about you've got lots of experience with accountants and you charge less than what an accountant would charge. Talk a little bit about the relationship you have with them and why they see you as valuable to them.
Yeah, so I find that one of my best ways of getting work is actually dealing with the accountant. So if I have a client that I've gotten, say, from another client referral, so I don't know their accountant, I make sure that when I send in year end, a couple weeks later, I check in and just ask them that when they're done year end, can we sit down, have a coffee, and maybe we can start referring to each other for other clients. And they're all receptive to that because we give a package that makes it easy for them. It decreases the amount they're writing off. So maybe they do charge the same or a little bit more than they did last year, but they're not writing off any other time because the file's coming in clean.
So really you're showing a lot of value to them, and they respect you back with giving their time, and they get a lot out of what you've prepared for them. So it's a healthy relationship. What
Yes.
would be your advice to people that have never worked with accountants? Where should they start?
Start with one of your best clients that loves you and get them to do an introduction for you if you're a little bit scared to try and do that introduction yourself, and get that client to go to their accountant and say, I'd really like you to meet my bookkeeper. These are the things that I love about her or him, and maybe you guys can start a relationship where she can start doing more bookkeeping for you.
Beautiful. Absolutely great advice. And we have a whole bunch of content that we give to our community for free inside of the Successful Bookkeeper community. So if, at the end of the show, we'll give the link and all of that information so the listeners can get access to that to help them start those conversations and build similar relationship with accountants that you've done, Melissa. For you in your journey, what have been the things that have gotten in your way?
Not hiring the right people is definitely one of the hard things. Not making sure, like on a cleanup job, make sure that you're charging ahead of time, because I've done a couple cleanup jobs now that I didn't charge ahead of time. And you take a look at the bank statement and you're like, oh yeah, they have money. But by the time they get you the last bank statement, they don't have any money. And you're on the hook, right? They've got the information they need to get their filings done, but you're not getting paid because they have no money. So definitely one of those things would be pre-charge for cleanups.
Pre-charge for cleanups. That's a golden one. And there's an interesting thing about those cleanup stories, because you're not the first one to have that problem. In fact, I've worked with bookkeepers from Europe, Australia, the United States, Canada. We're getting into the thousands now. And everybody's been burnt at some point by cleanup. And from a psychological standpoint, people that have problems typically will be problems. I mean, it's just the way, there's a high likelihood. It's like going to the casino, right? There's a high likelihood you're walking out with no money. That's just the way they work. Otherwise there wouldn't be a casino. So, go into it with eyes wide open, which is what you're saying. And I think the theme and the feedback is, know that if there's a problem, you want to protect yourself because there's likely going to be a problem. It's just how they transact. So it's a great first one. What else have you struggled with?
Definitely not hiring the right employee and making sure that they are taking care of your clients the right way. One story that I can kind of give you is, I had someone that was going to a client, and the client, I would send the client a bill. They'd send a message back, 2 or 3 minutes later, please put through my Visa. So in my opinion, everything's all good, right? You're paying your bill, so there's nothing that I'm seeing that's wrong. Well, I let go the employee. I go to do the bookkeeping there, and she's like, yeah, I was really unhappy with her. So make sure you're touching base, not just with a bill, but with the communication to all your clients. Make sure you're doing that at least one touch a year, if not every quarter or every 6 months, depending on the client, right? If you don't see them very often, it's a little less that you're touching base with them, but touch base that you make sure that they're happy, that the things are being done that are supposed to be done, and the timing of how much work there is and how much you're actually billing makes sense.
I think that's an area that could be very risky, because when people are hiring staff, you're hiring them to help yourself, right? Help your business, help yourself get out of, whatever amount of workload that you have. So you could risk looking at the staff like, oh, they're here, I'm happy, I just want it to work out. It's almost like you could call it happy ears or happy eyes. Like, I'm only going to see the things that are good because it's helping me. But you actually asked those questions and were willing to hear the unhappy information, which you had power now to do something about it. Did you ever struggle with, worrying about what might happen if you lost your staff or if you lost a client? How did you deal with that?
So I've done both. I've had both happen. I lost a very, very large client of mine. Like, it was, a $5,000 to $10,000 a month client due to oil field industry, and they chose to go with an internal controller for their company. which they offered to me, but I was trying to grow a business, so it didn't make sense for me to take a full-time CFO position. So I lost that client, and when I first lost it, it was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? But you know what? Things happen for a reason, and I am a true believer of that. And when I lost that client, I had this ability to help my employees grow because I had a little bit more time. And I also had the ability to go and spend more time networking with business people in my community, as well as networking with accountants. And I've replaced all that income within 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And on the employee side, I fought with myself to let an employee go because I thought, how are we going to take all the work that she had, get it done still? But you know what? When you take out the negativity in your business, because that was my problem, was there was a negativity issue, everyone just piles together and gets the work done, and the change in the attitudes made it so that all the work got done that much quicker because everyone was happy. So as hard as it might be that you're losing that 40 hours a week of help, or maybe it's only 20 hours a week of help, it does make a difference to make sure the culture in your business is good.
And how do you make sure that your culture is good? What are some of the things you do to either keep the culture or create the culture?
So I think a fairly nice boss, but if your work's not getting done, that's not okay. So we've added a bunch of policies and procedures in place, which we didn't have before, which has helped, as well as just being available to all the employees for any questions. We've made it, because we work everywhere and we work at clients and we work at the office in the city, and I also have an office inside my house for all of us. Because we work all over the place, we don't always touch base physically all the time. So we implemented a daily email that all of us send out an email when we first start our day, let everyone know where we're at, what we're doing. And then we try to always be together on Fridays to work one day a week together. And it's really helped the culture. Very
cool. So you're doing that by just texting people or emailing? How does it work functionally?
We all send out an email first thing in the morning to let everyone else know where we are and what we're working on. Because there's always that chance that somebody's working on something and that client sent me an email with some more information. So by us touching base and saying what client we're working on today, it solves a lot of issues where the person that's doing the work isn't emailing the client for the information that's sitting in my email. So it's just always touching base, always having those touch points. And I'm always available, whether I'm on vacation or I'm at a client. My employees always know that they can call, text, or email for help.
That's great. And you use text? What way do you find? Because it sounds like you have a high level of communication, which is, that's a starting point of culture, right? If you're not communicating, there's not going to be much. That'll be a culture of no communication. What technology or things do you find are most effective for you?
So we use email, of course, because that's easy. We all have iPhones, so we do iMessages with the group texting, of course. We also have a program that's called Link, which is through Microsoft. And I think they just changed their name to Skype. It's a Skype app, so we're able to message each other as long as we're on the computer at any time.
Very cool.
And then the phones, of course. So we have multiple abilities to touch base, which is awesome.
That's great. Excellent. So your staff, so you've hired staff. How have you been able to hire good people into your business?
Pure bookkeeping, HR has definitely helped 100%. Prior to being a licensee, the one employee I have, and I don't suggest this because it's not the best way to do it, but it worked out really well for me. I was at a client where I was the controller, and I decided to leave because I wasn't okay with some of the things that were happening. And the girl that I trained to replace me called me about 6 months later and said, I don't agree with what I'm having to do. I'm leaving. So I hired her.
Right on. Excellent.
So I trained her and I knew her abilities. So it worked really well for me. It's probably not the way most people want to hire because you don't want to be stealing people from clients or prior clients. But in this case, it worked out well. But Indeed is a great website to use to put your ad out because it has that ability to send messages out and you can get them to answer a couple questions. Like I require my employees to have a vehicle and a driver's license because we're all over the Edmonton area, which means driving to Drayton Valley or Whitecourt or whatever it might be. So that's one of the questions. So if they can't say yes to that, then I'm not wasting my time looking at a resume.
Beautiful. So talk a little bit about the Pure Bookkeeping HR program. How have you used it to improve your business?
The exams, so I hired, before Pure Bookkeeping, I hired a lady that she used to own a business, did her own bookkeeping. She told me in the interview, she interviewed really well, was fantastic. She sits down in the office with me because I usually spend a couple weeks with them in the office with me, not going to clients. And I'm like, okay, here's the bank statements. I need you to do this bank rec. And it's one of those, I picked the clients that I know are super, they only use their bank account for business. They only use the bank account to pay things. So it's an easy file, right? And she sat there for about 10 minutes staring at the screen. And I said, do you not know how to do a bank rec? She's like, no, I never did that. I always had my bookkeeper do that.
Wow.
And it was like, but you said you did your own bookkeeping. Well, I put everything together and then I sent it to the bookkeeper. And I'm like, this isn't going to work, right? Give me the name of your bookkeeper. Maybe I can hire her.
Wow. Well, you were lucky that didn't cost you. What do you think the cost of that hire cost you?
A few hours of my time, which of course is very, very limited time, right?
Yep.
It's the thing that we all run out of, but it could have been way worse.
Absolutely. And that's
I definitely count myself lucky, and I do an exam for all of my hires prior to Pure Bookkeeping. After I hired that person, I had actually created a QuickBooks, and the person had to come in and do a few things, and I had fake bank statements and whatever to see how that they did. But now that I have Pure Bookkeeping, I don't need to develop that myself.
That's right. It's interesting. People talk about skill and character, right? You hire for character versus skill. What would you say about that?
You definitely want them to be able to fit into your culture because you don't want problems internally where people can't communicate or this person doesn't like working with this person or that person doesn't like working with that person. So it definitely has something to do with character and their ability to be personable within your own group. But skill is super important, and I would say 75 skill and 25% being able to be in your culture. And I wouldn't hire because of skill. I would hire because both of them work together.
Yeah, but really great point, right? I mean, you can do personality tests till you're blue in the face, but if the person doesn't know what they're doing, that's not going to work either. And you could train them, but really the training cost is going to be extremely high. Why not try and find someone who both has the skill and the character? And that's what the jewel in the crown that you're kind of looking for.
Yeah, so I start looking a good 6 months prior to meeting someone.
Nice.
Just so I can find that perfect person.
Very cool. Very cool. So in terms of where your business is going, what's next for you?
Well, I actually just hired an HR specialist. So I'm finding more and more clients that I have need HR help, but they don't need someone in there full time, just like they need bookkeeping, but they don't need someone in there full time. So I just jumped off the ledge and hired an HR specialist. So she's on with me part-time, and she's doing memos on stat holidays and what the requirements are and policies and onboarding and all kinds of things. So that's the new direction and added scope of King Accounting Solutions.
Love it. That's so fantastic. You can feed both businesses with the added solution.
Yes, so we just added a trade name and we're going with King Business Solutions. So
Beautiful.
beautiful new things happening.
Exciting. Well, you are one of those people I think of often around just being a true entrepreneur and a true service to small business owners. And the ones that have you are lucky to have you. I got to say, yeah, it's fantastic to have worked with you and be working with you.
Thank you. I love what I do and I love being able to help clients. It never was about the money. It was about being able to help them during the year instead of after the year. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Awesome. Well, you know what? Let's end on 3 business success tips that you would give to our listeners.
Oh, I feel like I needed to pre-do this.
Oh, it's so much better when you don't have time, when it's a surprise. And we don't do it that often, but I think you'll probably come up with some gold right out of the gate.
Find a way to network inside your community. I use BNI. It's fantastic, and it's a great way to grow relationships business-wise and personal and be able to be part of your community. You always want to be part of the community and be able to give back. The other thing is giving back. So I volunteer for personal tax season for old age homes as well. This year I'm actually doing the Cross Cancer Clinic, as it's very close to my heart, as my mom passed from cancer. So giving back to the community is huge. And just keep your values. Your business will grow because people hear about you. I was never part of the chamber, and I decided in December to be part of the chamber here in Leduc. And the first comment I had when I walked in was, I've heard so much about you. I've heard so much about you. And I talk to people and they're like, oh, I heard about you at the chamber. And I'm like, I'm not even part of the chamber. But having your values and working and doing your business based on your values will help you grow your business.
Really, really valuable. See, Melissa, it's all there. You don't need to prepare for anything. Those are extremely valuable. And I will say that we have some really cool free complimentary resources that will help people, the listeners, with the success tips that you gave. So there's some really cool scripts around networking and hiring and all sorts of good stuff inside of our complimentary, free, if you will, Successful Bookkeeper community portal, where we have all sorts of resources. And you can get that if you go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com and sign up. You'll get access to that instantly. And as a kind of a bonus for this episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of the ads that we use inside of our hiring system. I'm going to post that up and give that away for free so people can have a look at how we start to open up and invite people to actually be a potential employee of one of our licensee bookkeeping firms. So that'll be a little gift I'll add to this episode. If you go to this specific episode in the portal, you'll find that. Melissa, you have been great. Let's tell people, if they want to find out more about you or get in touch with you, or if perhaps we have entrepreneurs or business owners listening to this podcast, if we do actually have, which surprised me, but how can they get in touch with you?
Well, we're just doing an upgrade to the website, as I don't use my website to grow my business. I hadn't really done much with it. So it looks like King Accounting Solutions is only me, which it's not. So we're doing that upgrade right now, but you can find me at www.kingaccounting.ca, or you can send me an email at Melissa, that's MELISSA at kingaccounting.ca, or my phone number is also always available, so 780-446-5901.
There you go. Awesome. We'll have all of that information. You're likely driving or doing something right now listening to this. Don't put yourself at risk. You just go to the successfulbookkeeper.com and go to this episode. We'll have all of Melissa's contact information as well. Melissa is an avid contributor on the Successful Bookkeeper Facebook group, which is a private group that you can request access to. It's one of the benefits to joining our community is you get access to this community. You can interact with Melissa, ask her questions, and find her there and work with her on Facebook. So, Melissa, it's been great having you. Thank you for joining us, and I wish you the best this year.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to put it out there to everyone. My tagline is do what you do best and outsource the rest. And just remember that out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
That wraps another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.